Alright, what is up, YouTube? I know I've been off for quite a while and haven't been as consistent as I wanted to be. But just the last few weeks in December have been like pretty hectic. So, back with another video, and essentially this is 7 life factors you need to dial in to have a successful 2026. And the whole reason why I'm making this video is because I was on social media and I really wanted a way to grow from 2025 and just see more progress than I have in any other year. And essentially, I came across this video just scrolling through Instagram, and it was like ask these 7 questions for you to have a successful 2026. And essentially, I thought, let me just take my expertise and my experience from being a entrepreneur and being in self-improvement for about like 3 years, mix it into a video and give it to the audience, because I'm sure everyone wants to have a better year than they did last year. So essentially, I want to keep this video as simple as I can. I don't want to overcomplicate it, because when you overcomplicate things, most likely people aren't going to take action. I don't want this to be super long either. So I just want to get short, straight to the point so you can start doing this for yourself. And if you take like around 30 to 60 minutes in your day to do this, it will just set up a much better and a much clearer path for what you want to do this year, to make sure you don't have like the same year as you did in 2025. Now, essentially, the first factor, jumping straight into this, would be to develop habit leverage. So essentially, when you're doing this, you could just open up a Google Doc and you can just take down notes and jot this down for yourself. Or after this video, you could just on a Google Doc just write down all your thoughts you have for each point. But essentially, the first point will be habit leverage. And essentially, all habit leverage is identifying what habits helped you grow and what habits held you back. And the reason why this is so important is because your daily actions compound. So making sure you have a solid foundation because of your habits, and making sure you execute your habits daily is extremely crucial, because bad habits compound into a negative result and good habits do vice versa. So essentially, an example of a good habit perhaps you may have done in 2025 was reading. And reading gave you a high understanding on a specific topic. For example, if you want to master the art of visualization, and also attracting success, read Think and Grow Rich. And I read that book about twice, and it's been pretty helpful. It's one of my favorite books I think I've read. Perhaps, yeah. So that's like a example of like a habit that helped you. Perhaps in 2025 you can carry into 2026. And perhaps maybe a negative habit was like scrolling on social media too much, and you should have been doing work. And to make sure you don't do that in 2026, write it down, identify the problem, and find a way to overcome it and actually take action to overcome it. Now, the second element essentially is to eliminate your comfort debt. So essentially, comfort debt is also extremely simple, like the first point. It's essentially just analyzing where you stayed comfortable in 2025 in different scenarios in your life, and why you stayed comfortable instead of changing. So as I said over here, comfort delays growth, and it keeps you stuck in patterns that feel safe, but it limits progress. And everyone has experience. Even everyone who's done something hard in their life has experience facing comfort debt. Like, for example, like perhaps you've gone to a mall and you want to ask someone a question. You're a very shy person. Instead of actually asking the question and getting what you want, you became comfortable and you just carried on. So that's probably like an example of where you stayed comfortable and where you should have grown. And another example is probably choosing dopamine over responsibility. Perhaps you had like a bit of homework to do, or you had a client project to finish on a certain time, but instead of actually putting in the work and instead of focusing on what you want to do, you chose dopamine over responsibility. And essentially, identifying where you're staying comfortable instead of growing is super important to learn more about yourself, obviously, but also learn more about your stress tolerance, and to see how you can grow from that, so you could just do more and grow more in 2026 and achieve the goals or resolutions that you made in the beginning of the year. Now, number 3 is going to be understanding energy economics. So with number 3, the simplest way to describe this is just identifying what is taking most of your energy, and who or what drained you and why you allowed it. So what habits drained your energy, what type of people drain your energy, and why did you allow that to occur in 2025? And if you didn't allow it to occur, then what steps did you take to eliminate those factors that are destroying energy? And the reason why this is so important is because energy leaks reduce your ability to show up fully in work, relationships, and health. And energy is the most important part in our day-to-day lives. If we don't have energy to do something, we won't do it to the best of our ability, and we'll just spend too much time on a task, and more time on a task than we should. Then we should spend more time on a task that shouldn't be taking too long, and it's because we don't have enough energy to dedicate to our tasks and responsibilities, because we have perhaps people or habits that are taking energy away from us. An example of this would be maintaining toxic relationships, or saying yes more than you should be saying no. So this is extremely important, one of the most important points, because everything is energy. Everything is energy, and if you can't master your energy, then it's not going to be a good outcome in terms of progress, and I can speak from experience. And sleep helps a lot with energy, so make sure you have good sleeping habits. So number 4 is silent wins. So doesn't matter if in 2025 you didn't put as much work as you should have. It's always important to acknowledge the work that you have put in, even if it's minor, and you should identify where you felt proud in scenarios that no one actually sees. And it takes a lot of internal growth before any external results. So acknowledging this will keep you motivated and actually want to take action 2026. Because I know, especially early for me in business, I took a lot of action before I saw any results at all, and it could get really discouraging if you're just saying, I put this much results, I'm not this much action, I'm not getting any results. So actually acknowledging the work that you're putting in and actually being proud of yourself just makes you feel just better about the progress that you're putting in, even if you're not seeing a result, and wants you to take action further. And an example would be having consistent outreach equals planting seeds. So perhaps if you're outreaching businesses, you're not getting any responses or any calls or sales or whatever, at least you're planting the seeds and you're actually learning from your mistakes. And that could be one of your silent wins that you had in 2025. Now, number 5 would be your fear thresholds. So what fears stopped you from going all in 2025? Because if you don't understand what is holding you back, and these can be the same fears that you had for the last few years, you won't move forward, because these fears are essentially like a roadblock. And essentially, if you don't understand what the roadblock actually is, you'll never be able to overcome it. And I know there's a lot of internal fears that I had in 2025 that I never really unpacked, and until I did this actually a few days ago, I actually realized what fears actually held me back, and I didn't even know that these were subconscious fears that I had, and now in 2026 I'll work towards making sure I don't succumb to these fears. And you can do the same for yourself. Maybe for you it was a fear of failure, maybe it was a fear of being judged, maybe it was a fear of taking a risk. But whatever the fear is, just identify and make sure that once you identify the fear, you understand why you succumb to the fear and how you can grow from the fear, so you can just have a more successful 2026. And number 6 would be value and identity alignment. So understanding your values as a human and a person, and also your identity and the type of person you're trying to build in 2026, the principles you want to carry across into the new year, and who you actually want to be is so important. Because if you don't have a clear guide and a clear vision, and I really do stress building identity so much, if you don't have a clear vision or guide or roadmap of where you want to go, you're just going to fall on a untrodden path, and you're just going to be running and spinning in circles, and you're not going to identify what it is that you want to do most in life. And to basically see if you are living your values, you should ask yourself, am I living my best values? Am I acting from values to reduce chaos in your life? And is my identity and my values helping me build the dream life or the dream character that I want to be in the future? And an example of an identity that perhaps you can carry across in 2026 would be a more organized human, and holding yourself to a higher standard to be organized, so you can have more consistency in your work. And perhaps the identity that you want to carry across into 2026 is to be perhaps an entrepreneur. And entrepreneurs, they're very organized people. They take action fast, they do high volume, and they execute on work without complaining about not seeing results. So again, you're identifying your values and identifying your identity is extremely important, because it just gives you a real path and a real understanding of who you want to be and where you want to go. Now, number 7, the last part would be your future tolerance. So if nothing changed in 2026, would you be okay? And just really understanding this is like the last push you need to take action, because if you're not comfortable with where you are going, or where you were going in 2025, and if you really do want to grow in 2026, see the consequences that not growing will actually hold for you. And your tolerance for stagnation will determine if you actually have the same year you've always had versus actually making change. So essentially, perhaps, for an example, rejecting being average will result in above average change. So perhaps in 2025 you did you already executed in your work which was at average level, or you put an average amount of results, or average amount of effort, so you got an average amount of results. But in 2026 you're like, no, I want to grow. I don't want to be the same person I was in 2025, because that would mean I would see no growth, I would be stagnant, and essentially I would not achieve my goals. So maybe in 2026 you'll be like, okay, I want to put above average effort, I want to put best effort I can, I want to stay focused, stay consistent, and I want to see what results I can bring into 2026. And even if you don't hit your results or goals in 2026, even setting high standards for yourself will mean you can get as close as possible to the results. Because if you don't set high standards for yourself and make them too easy, your brain will get lazy and be like, this is too easy, this is not a good challenge. But if you make the goal high enough, and you can push hard to reach your goal, even if you don't achieve it and you fall short by like half, at least you've made some progress and you've got more close to your goal than you would have from not taking action. So for example, if your goal is to make 10k per month, say you only end up making 5k per month within 2026, and you average 5k per month, at least you're still halfway there and you're 5k per month richer than you were. So setting your future tolerance is just a last push that you need in identifying where you want to go and what action you want to take in 2026. And like I was saying earlier in the video, just take 30 to 60 minutes to complete these steps. Like I just did this whole breakdown for myself. It took me about 60 minutes, and it wasn't like a short breakdown either. It was like really in depth and picking my brain and picking like my past events. Just by doing these small 7 steps, you have a solid plan for this year, where you want to go, and how you want your 2026 to look like. Because I know a lot of people have big goals, big aspirations for 2026, or whenever the new year starts, but there's actually a stat within the first 19 days of the year, I think it was 95% of people don't actually follow through on their goals. So yeah, just doing the 7 things will make sure that you're not part of that statistic, and you can actually stay consistent for as long as possible. So let's crush 2026. Let's make this a really big year, and there'll be more coming from me as well. So make sure you take these steps and let me know what progress or what discoveries you found out about yourself. And yeah, I'm excited for what the year has to hold. Peace.